Greetings and salutations, people of the YouTube Nation. You are now listening to the premier voice for entertainment and information. Run from it, dread it. The 6-7 meme is. As an educator, I don't know how many times I've had to listen to that over the past year. They keep doing that gesture and saying 6-7. You ask them what that means, they don't know. That being said, hearing that all day got me thinking. What are some of the players that have been 6'7"? Alright, let me stop. Or taller in world football. Generally speaking, in many sports it's better to be taller. Take the NBA for example. From Elgin Baylor to Dr. J, Michael Jordan, Kobe, and now LeBron James. There have been many superstars that have been around 6'7" or taller. That is, of course, because you're trying to score on a basket that is suspended 10 feet in the air. It's going to be easier for you to either block, score, or rebound the taller you are. Although NBA courts are significantly smaller than an association football field, an NBA court is 94 feet long by 50 feet wide. That's about 28 meters long by 15 meters wide. Now, contrast that with association football pitches that have to have a minimum field dimensions of 100 meters by 64 meters for international games, such as the ones taking place in the World Cup in a few months. Now, translated to freedom units, 100 meters is about 110 yards by 70 yards. Just to further illustrate my point, an NBA court could easily fit into the 18-yard box. So my main point that I'm trying to make is this. Football players run a lot farther for a lot longer. While being tall generally helps you in certain aspects, it doesn't give you more agility or stamina. Of course, there have been many NBA-sized players that have made a career out of football. I wouldn't be making this video otherwise. I did notice though that taller players tend to be either great at goal or being a target man up front. Without further ado, who's not particularly tall, here are the top 7 players that are 6'7" or taller. Number 7, Fraser Foster. Standing at 6'7", the England international goalkeeper made his name at Celtic. He played there during a loan spell from his boyhood club, Newcastle United. After impressing at Celtic, he earned a permanent deal. 2 years later, he was brought back to the Premier League thanks to a bid from Southampton, where he was made the number 1, and even impressed so much that he earned some international call-ups to the England squad. Number 6, Dan Burn, 6'7". Here we have the second player to feature for Newcastle United in the Premier League. Dan Burn is actually the only player not to be a center forward or goalkeeper on the list. Instead, he's a defender who can play as a center back in a back two, as the left-sided center back in a back three, or even as a left wing back in a 3-5-2 formation. Dan Burn is a solid center back that remains at Newcastle even after the influx of Saudi money. He's done very well at Newcastle, so much so that he even earned a few call-ups to England during the past calendar year. The team actually won the EFL Cup this year. Number 5, Nikola Djigic, 6'7.5". Here we have the first player of the list not to play for Newcastle United. The Serbian international actually was a big hulking center forward who had a journeyman career. I mostly remember him from his time in Spain with Racing Santander and Valencia, where he won a Copa del Rey in the 07-08 season. Djigic actually played for Serbia in a couple of World Cups. Well, actually, he played for Serbia in the 2010 World Cup. Before that, he actually played with a unified Serbia and Montenegro in the 2006 World Cup. Shortly after that, Serbia and Montenegro were split up into 2 different countries. It's no secret that Djigic, being 6'7", excelled in the aerial game, so he definitely used that to his advantage. Most of the goals he scored were through headers or being in the box and poaching a goal here and there. Zeljko Kalac, 6'7.5" or 202 centimeters. Born in Australia to Croatian heritage, He was capped 54 times for Australia. He was also part of the squad that made their return to the World Cup in 2006. He was a solid goalkeeper and even had a spell at AC Milan, where he won the UEFA Champions League as an understudy to Dida. Number 3, Peter Crouch, 6'7". Ah, yes, Peter Crouch. Named after the thing he probably spent a lot of time doing while navigating the world. The tall, lanky forward started out his career with the Spurs. Nevertheless, he found it hard to get opportunities, so he went to different clubs, starting with Queen's Park Rangers. It wasn't until the 2004-2005 season, while he was playing for Southampton, that he impressed enough to not only earn a call up to the England national side, but also get a big money move to Liverpool, a side who was the champions of Europe in that season. Now, Peter Crouch has good ball control. I'm not saying he's Ronaldinho or anything, but he does have a good first touch for a big man, especially considering that he would often play the big man, little man role to great effect. You know, the proper Brexit football. Just lump it up to the big man and get second chance opportunities, either a flick on or something. He did that to great effect playing for England alongside Wayne Rooney, alongside playing for Portsmouth and the Spurs with Jermaine Defoe, a partnership that would define a generation. Among other things, he was famous for doing the robot celebration, although that robot looks a little bit stiff. Might need a little bit of loof if you catch my drift. He was famous for that and scoring that great header goal at the World Cup in 2006 against Trinidad and Tobago, although it was probably a foul to be fair. Number 2, Jan Koller, 6'7.5" or 202 centimeters. The Czech striker was an absolute unit. Not only was he 6'7", but unlike Crouch, who would bend if you blew on him hard enough, Koller actually had some meat. As you might imagine, he was an absolute threat in the air. It was damn near impossible to move with his back to goal, which allowed him to pivot and get into possession. That means he was an absolute menace in international tournaments. He holds a record for the most goals for the Czech Republic with 55 goals in 91 appearances. And when he was not terrorizing lambs in the world stage, he was busy earning titles with Borussia Dortmund. Number 1, Thibaut Courtois, 6'7" or 200 centimeters. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'll be posting on Reddit, and oftentimes I see people praising Sergio Ramos and Iker Casillas. Don't get me wrong, they're good players. At the same time, they're vastly overrated. And I say this because usually people think I bash on them because they're Real Madrid players. No, that has nothing to do with it. They're actually overrated. Now, I'm not saying that both Casillas and Ramos are bombs, but for the amount of hype they get, you would think that they would be the best of the best or some of the undisputed goats in their position, even though some people try to make them like that. There's no sensible conversation that involves both Casillas and Ramos in the top 5 defender or goalkeepers ever. Sergio Ramos holds the record for the most red cards given to a player in Europe with 30. 30. He would hold the overall record, but that goes to Gerardo Bedoya from Colombia with 46. Ramos was often rash in the challenge, out of possession, and resorted to intimidating and flat out assaulting his opponent on the pitch in order to try to get an advantage. Honestly, he would have twice the amount of cards that he does if he did not play for Real Madrid for most of his career. And as for Casillas, oh boy, Casillas has excellent reflexes and shot stopping ability. However, everything else that he does is really bad at. He was about 182 centimeters, or a little bit under 6 foot. Coming for crosses, or coming off the line, really, he was an absolute disaster. He would often hesitate, make mistakes, and just overall make life difficult for his defenders. Even his reflex saves were a little bit problematic because he would not really parry the ball out of danger. He would just often just block the ball and leave it dangling for the opposition to score goals. Think if David De Gea was 10 centimeters shorter and you get Iker Casillas. Yes, he's a great shot stopper, but everything else is just garbage at. I say all that to mean that Thibaut Courtois is one of, if not the best goalkeeper I've ever seen. I think only Manuel Neuer can compete with him. Me personally, I'll take Neuer just because he's better at being a sweeper. And I know that Barcelona usually like to play with a high line, so I prefer a goalkeeper that can be a sweeper. But as far as traditional goalkeeping goes, Thibaut Courtois is probably the best. He can block shots and actually parry them out of danger. He can claim crosses and not leave them dangling for the opposition. I don't care what anybody says. To me, Courtois should have won the 2022 Ballon d'Or ahead of Benzema. He absolutely carried Real Madrid to that title. And he did something similar a couple of years later. So, some of the saves that he's doing is just maddening. He seems to have special contempt for Liverpool because he turns into an absolute monster whenever he faces them. He did it again a couple of weeks back. I mean, Liverpool ultimately won, but Real Madrid had no business being in that game. They only lost by 1-0, where they should have lost by 3 or 4 at least. So there you go, that is my list. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.